Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and we will be talking about adlerian theory. Who founded or created adlerian theory, and where was it created? So Dr. Alfred Adler was a physician in Austria. He was also a psychotherapist and founded the adlerian theory. Adler brought attention to community life, how important it was for that connection to your community, um, prevention, and population health. Adler encompassed a concern for the common person. He was an advocate for children at risk, women's rights, equality of the sexes, adult education, community mental health, family counseling, as well as brief therapy. So what need did Adlerian theory fill? Why was it created? How did it differ from other theories? So Alfred Adler was a cohort of Jung and Freud and a major contributor to the initial development of the psychodynamic approach to therapy. However, Dr. Adler rejected Freud's basic theories because he believed Freud was deficient in his focus on biological and instinctual determination. Dr. Adler believed that the individual begins to form a life perspective in the first 6 years of life. He focused on the person's past as it is understood in the present and how an individual's interpretation of those early events continue to influence the person's present behavior. So Adler contended humans are motivated by social relatedness as opposed to sexual urges. Behavior, he believed, is calculated, goal-oriented, and of the consciousness as opposed to the Freud's unconsciousness. And so that was the focus of therapy. So what did it come about, or excuse me, when did it come about and what was going on in the world? This was World War I time period, and Dr. Adler was of Jewish descent, and so he endured the anti-Semitism and horrors of World War I. He served in World War I as a physician. Those experiences, as well as the socio-political context of the time, really made him value and have an emphasis on humanism and the need for people to work together. He was very aware of the impact of context and culture on human personality, and his theory was built upon this cultural awareness. Okay, key concepts. The inferiority complex, superiority complex, and style of life are some of his key concepts. The inferiority complex is something we're born with. It's those feelings of inadequacy. Superiority complex, although we're striving to reach superiority, some individuals can show feelings of haughtiness, and that comes from the need to overcome underlying feelings of inferiority. Style of life, and that is the individual's unique, unconscious, and repetitive way of responding or avoiding the main tasks of living. And those main tasks of living are friendship, love, and work. We will talk more about those in a little bit. So Adler's view of human nature. Adler believed that you form an approach to life again in the first 6 years, somewhere in between those first 6 years. Adler focused on how the person's past is perceived in the present and how that individual's interpretation of those events continues to influence beliefs and behaviors in the present. He believed humans are motivated primarily by social relatedness rather than sexual urges, and behavior is purposeful and goal-oriented. He believed consciousness is the focus of therapy. He also stressed choice and responsibility, meaning in life, and how important meaningfulness is, and striving for success, completion, and perfection. While you'll never reach perfection, that inadequacy and striving for perfection is what motivates you. He believed that everything starts with those consideration of inferiority feelings. And again, Dr. Adler saw those as a normal condition that you are born with, and it's a condition of all people and the origin of human endeavors. So those inferiority or inferior feelings, rather than a sign of weakness or abnormality, are actually what motivate and can be a source of creativity. Feelings of inferiority drive us for mastery, success, and completion. Human behavior is not determined by heredity or environment. We have the capacity to interpret, influence, and create events despite heredity or environment. Genetics and heredity are less important than our choices, and our choices are made using abilities and limitations that we have. Dr. Adler believed people could change through social learning. Dr. Adler did reject the deterministic stance, but knew that each individual still had limitations. And he realized those biological and environment conditions do restrict our capacity in some ways. He focused on re-educating individuals and reshaping society. He also focused on internal determinants of behavior, like values, beliefs, attitudes, goals, interests, and the individual perception of reality. He took a holistic, social, goal-oriented, systemic, and humanistic approach. He believed that we must understand people within the systems in which they live, and those all look very different. The next key concept is subjective perception of reality. So Dr. Adler believed in viewing the world from the client's subjective frame of reference. And he was attentive to the individual in a way that he wanted to know how they perceive the world and wanted to see their situations from their own perspective. This was known as subjective reality, which includes the individual's perceptions, thoughts, feelings, values, beliefs, convictions, and conclusions. He believed behavior is understood from the vantage point of this subjective perspective. And he also believed that objective reality was less important than how we interpret reality and the meanings we attach to what we have experienced or are experiencing. Key concept is unity and patterns of human personality. Dr. Adler chose the name individual psychology, which is another term for adlerian theory. And what this meant was that through this approach, he wanted to address the person as a whole. Individual psychology meant indivisible psychology. Dr. Adler emphasized the unity and indivisibility of the person and stressed understanding the whole person rather than in parts. He believed all dimensions of a person are interconnected components, and these components are unified by the individual's movement toward a life goal. We must be understood in relationship to our social constructs. And he believed the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, convictions, attitudes, character, and actions of an individual are a reflection of their uniqueness. And this uniqueness allows for a plan toward a self-selected life goal. He also believed that the client is an integral part of the social system, that everyone has a place and a part within their social system, and that they're deeply embedded. He put emphasis on interpersonal relationships rather than the individual's internal psychodynamics. So our next concept is behavior as purposeful and goal-oriented. So Adler believed that we can only think, feel relative to our goal. We can be fully understood only in light of knowing the purposes and goals for which we are striving to accomplish. Fictional finalism. This term is used by Adlerians to refer to an imagined life goal that guides that person's behavior. It's important to note that Dr. Adler did not use this term, but used other terms such as guiding self-ideal, goal of perfection, and these were his terms to describe the same striving towards superiority or perfection. Striving for perfection implies striving for greater knowledge and for the common good of others. In early life, we imagine what we might be like, and those imaginations of us being successful, whole, complete, or perfect is what motivates us through life. Again, this motivates us as a guiding self-ideal. Only when I am perfect can I be secure, or only when I'm important can I be accepted. And those thoughts and imaginations to go past inferiority is what motivates us, guides us, and keeps us striving for the next level. Okay, another key concept is striving for significance and superiority. Recognition of inferiority feelings and striving for perfection, Dr. Adler believed were intrinsic. To understand human behavior, it is essential to grasp the ideas of basic inferiority. Dr. Adler also believed that the very moment we experience inferiority, we are then motivated to strive for superiority. Dr. Adler maintained that the goal of success propels people forward towards mastery. We can also overcome obstacles in this way. So this motivation is twofold in that it can help us overcome obstacles as we strive for that superiority. Superiority, as used by Adler, does not mean superiority over others, but it means moving from a perceived lower position to a higher position in relation to yourself. And people cope with feelings of helplessness by striving for success and perfection. Okay, lifestyle is our next concept. It's also known as, by Dr. Adler, plan of life, style of life, strategy for living, and roadmap. This is a style of working towards goals. It is the way we think, act, feel, perceive, and live. The movement from a deficit to a plus results in the development of a life goal. Core beliefs and assumptions guide us in our movement through life. It organizes reality. It gives meaning to life events. And this is so very important. Adopting a proactive rather than reactive approach to our social environment. He also believed events in the environment influence the development of personality, and our interpretations of these events shape our personality. Defective interpretations of events then lead to mistaken beliefs in our private logic, which influences the present behavior. And that's how those past events and our perception impact what happens and how we behave in the present. Being aware of those defective interpretations and bringing to light allows us to make changes. And then lastly, we can reframe childhood experiences and consciously create a new style of living. We can see those experiences from a different perspective and therefore not allow it to affect the present. Okay, our next concept is the most important, and that's social interest and community feeling. In Adlerian theory, this is the most important concept that influences a person's well-being. It's the most significant and distinctive concept, and and it is our social interest in our community feeling. It refers to a person's awareness of being part of a community and that individual's viewpoint in dealing with the social world. Social interest is that person's connectivity to their society. It involves being as concerned about others as one is about oneself. This involves the capacity to join and contribute to something bigger than yourself. Social interest requires contact with the present to make a move toward a meaningful future. The socialization process associated with social interest begins in childhood, and it involves helping children find a place in society and fostering that sense of belonging. Adler considered social interest to be innate, but he also believed it should be fostered. It can be learned and developed and then applied. Dr. Adler equated social interest with a sense of identification and empathy with others. And I love this quote in the text that he said, he quoted, "To see with the eyes of another, to hear with the ears of another, and to feel with the heart of another." Social interest and community feeling continued. So for adlerians, social interest is a central indicator of mental health. This is the most important factor. As social interest develops, those feelings of inferiority and alienation diminish. And social interest can be expressed through shared activities, cooperations, participation in the common good, and then mutual respect for one another. Individual psychology rests on that central belief that our happiness and success is related to this social connectedness. We are deeply planted in a society and in that in the whole of humanity. And because of this, we cannot be understood in isolation from that social context. It's part of who we are. We are motivated by a desire to belong and that feeling of being connected to all of humanity, past, present, and future. And of course, in addition to that, being involved is making the world a better place. And that community feeling is evolutionary. That need to belong is evolutionary. And it displays itself in courage, empathy, caring, compassion, engagement, as well as cooperation. A lack of community feeling can leave a person discouraged and feeling useless. And a place in family and society fulfills that basic need for security, acceptance, and worthiness. It is our sense of belonging that is responsible for anxiety if it is not fulfilled. That united feeling allows us to face problems with courage and thus extinguishes that anxiety. Dr. Adler believed in the next concept of the three life tasks. These three tasks were building friendships, establishing intimacy, and contributing to society. So social task, love marriage task, and occupational task. He believed that every individual needed to address these three tasks. Um, he encouraged clients to develop and increase social interests and change their lifestyle so they can implement these three tasks. And in addition to this, he developed the question as a way to find out which of these tasks was a problem. And this question was, what would you do if you were quite well? That Dr. Adler introduced was birth order and how that affects your personality. And so we're going to start. The oldest child is, as they're an only child, is spoiled and the center of attention. Tends to be dependable and hardworking and strives to keep ahead. Once that new sibling arrives, it makes them feel displaced. They no longer feel unique or special and believes the new sibling will take away their position of in the family and rob them of love. Um, they try to reassert, Adler believed that they try to reassert their position by becoming a model child, bossing younger children, and exhibiting that high achievement drive. The second child shares the attention with another child from birth. Dr. Adler observed they behave as if they're always in a race and at full capacity. It's like the second child is trying to take the place or take over the position of the older sibling. The younger child can develop skills for finding the older child's weaknesses, wins praise from both parents by achieving successes where the older sibling is deficient. Um, if one is talented in a given area, the other one will strive for recognition by doing different other things. And then the second born is often opposite to the firstborn. Convinced of the unfairness of life and feels cheated, um, can assume a poor me attitude, and families with conflict, this child may become the sounding board or peacemaker. Adler observed that they are the baby of the family and most pampered. Pampering and spoiling may cause helplessness, and they may develop in unique ways. The only child, they may not learn to share or cooperate with other children. They have a high achievement drive and deal with adults well. Um, Although pampered by parents, they may become dependently tied to one or both parents, and they want to be the center of attention. Therapeutic goals of Adlerian theory. So, the Adlerian counseling and therapy is a plan between client and counselor that is collaborative. The process includes close rapport based on mutual respect. It's a holistic psychological investigation and can include lifestyle assessment, identifying incorrect goals and wrong assumptions. Um, Reorientation is needed, re-education to move the client in a more useful and productive life. The goal of this therapy is to develop that client's sense of belonging in society and community. And again, that is the most important aspect of this theory. therapeutic techniques and procedures. Number one, and this is according to the Corey text, establish the proper therapeutic relationship. That includes the rapport. Explore the psychological dynamics operating in the client. You can do this through an assessment. You're going to encourage the development of self-understanding, insight into purpose, that self-awareness and um, the understanding of what's going on. Help the client make new choices, reorient them, re-educate them. These steps don't occur in this linear fashion. Sometimes they can occur interwovenly, and so maintaining that rapport is the most important. So what causes hurt and suffering? Mistaken beliefs about yourself, about others in life, an inadequate style of living, role in family, lack of any of the three universal life tasks that we talked about, social, love, or occupation. People acting on the useless side. Adler said that if we are on the useless side and not functional in society, we are more susceptible to psychopathology. Faulty private logic. So these concepts about ourselves. What promotes change? Encouraging social interest by helping clients connect with their responsibility to community is number one. Assisting clients to overcome feelings of discouragement and inferiority. Helping a client reach a lifestyle that's adaptive, flexible, and social. Again, there's that social. Changing faulty motivation, encouraging equality and acceptance of self as well as others, and then helping people to become contributing members of society. All right, our class engagement. So what are the three universal life tasks? Adler posed the question, what would you do if you were quite well, to help his clients help determine what? An adlerian theory is also known as what other term? What are the three universal life tasks? And that is building friendships, that's our social task, establishing intimacy, our love marriage task, and contributing to society, our occupational task. And then the question that Adler posed, what would you do if you were quite well? And what did that help him determine? That helped him find out which life task was a problem. Is it social? Is it love marriage? Is it occupational? And then Adlerian theory is also known as individual psychology.